and welcome to the Inside Story. This time I have with me in the Zoom studio Graeme Stewart. Hello Graeme, how are you?
Hello, I'm not too bad, thank you, Alan. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's been a lovely day here in this part of the country, and the sun has been shining. It's been lovely to be out in it for a little while. Did you get out today at all?
I did, yeah. After work, we went for a bit of a walk with the new buggy, which is a running buggy. So you can actually take it. This is not for me to go in, by the way. It is for my daughter, who's 7 months old. But you can take it for a jog. So that's the general idea. We didn't go for a jog, thought it was too warm, but we went out with that. So it was very exciting stuff.
Good, good. So a trial run with the buggy, maybe jog the next time?
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Good. Well, listen, welcome to this time when we can have a wee chat about what's been happening to you during lockdown. I think we must be week 10 or 11, something like that. And as you can see, if you check back to one of the early inside stories, I hadn't a beard. I'm now developing one, so this time is having quite an effect on many of us. What's it been like for you? How are you? What have some of your experiences been during lockdown?
Um, it's been a mixed experience, I think, for everyone. I think we've all seen some positive things and some things that are horrendous in every way possible. Um, I think the really good things have been slowing down a bit. And for me personally, it's been being able to spend some time with my wife and my daughter because I'm not working in an office and I get a little bit more time because I'm not going in and not coming back. So that's been really good. Um, and then the difficult thing, of course, for everyone, myself included, is just that sense of isolation from the real world and the sort of sense of fear that we all kind of are living with at the moment. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel, a weird mix. And then you kind of get a day where you think, this is all right. I kind of felt like I can get used to this now and this is kind of okay. And then the next day you just feel like this is terrible. I need this to end right now. Has been my mix of things.
Right, so it's been a bit of a roller coaster then. And in terms of, you mentioned something there that quite a few people talk about, and it's this idea of slowing down. Do you want to say a little bit about what your experience of slowing down has been?
Yeah, I think we've got more time to spend on things, albeit a lot of those things for me have been wasting many hours on social media or staring at a window. I'm but I think we've got more time to sort of smell the roses, as they say. When you go out on walks, I think you kind of pay a bit more attention to everything going on around you, which has been really. I've been able to spend sort of uninterrupted time with Lucy, who's my daughter, and with my wife Sarah, and that's been really good. Sort of spend that time and not think, what are we going to do now? What have we got to do next? Because there's nothing to do next. Once I'm finished work, that's kind of it, which is a bizarre feeling, but a good feeling as well.
So we hear a lot about people working from home these days, as you're clearly having to do at the moment, like myself. So do you get up as normal and put your suit on and tie and go into the office, the dining room, or wherever it is?
Absolutely not. No, definitely, definitely not. I think my clothing for the last little while has consisted of shorts and t-shirts for the most part. I occasionally wear sort of like a shirt, but then I've always got a pair of shorts on below. In fact, I bought some new shorts from the North Face, which I was very pleased with, that came through. First time I've bought shorts in ages. That's the kind of exciting thing that I've been up to. So no, I get up at a much later time than I normally do for office or something, and I go through and I sort of turn on the computer. And the nice thing is that I get to have breakfast with Sarah and Lucy, and then I can just sort of turn around and start the day. I've been doing a lot of video conferencing, and I kind of started off with that. When you're talking about sort of putting on appearances, I kind of started off with that with wanting to have like a super intelligent background behind me. Like I wanted to have like sort of the rows of books sitting behind me, ready to go. But then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to be really honest. And most of the time when I'm doing video training with my colleagues, I have got the chaos and mess of the spare room behind me. And I just kind of live with that. So there's a pram normally over my shoulder and a table with loads of dishes on it. And I think I've had a few people actually call on it and say it's nice not to see like a lovely background. It's nice to see chaos behind you. So that's quite good. So I've gone with that approach.
Right. Okay. Well, it's different, I suppose. And I'm the same, working out of a spare room, trying to hide most of the mess, but it's not always possible, as you can tell. So we're trying to find some kind of normality, some kind of routine, particularly as we're working at the same time as being in lockdown. What are some of the struggles, though, that you're dealing with? Is there anything in particular? You've mentioned about wishing some days it would just end and we get back to some kind of normality as it was pre-COVID. What's a struggle for you?
I think a struggle for me is probably what most people feel, which is not seeing family and friends. And I was pretty quite surprised about that because I'm quite an introverted person. I quite like my time to myself and I always look for a bit of time to myself. And I've found it really, really difficult actually not to see family and friends, not to see my mum, my sister, my brothers, and all my close friends. I found it really difficult not to actually be in an office space and have people around me because I've got a lot of really good people that I work with, and I found it really difficult not to be around them. And not just this because of the interview and where we're based, but I've actually found it really difficult not to be going to church. And some mornings, if I'm very honest, it's the weekend and you could quite happily lie in on a Sunday and you sort of think, will I get up or won't I? Well, I think now I'd get up every single time because I really miss sort of walking in those doors. When I see them, if I go out for a walk, and I do quite often walk past the church, I always think, I'll go wonderful when we get back in. But then it will be different at the same time too.
Yeah. So we've spoken a little bit about some of the struggles, the joy of being home with Sarah and Lucy, and slowing down a little bit. Any other joys in your lockdown experience you'd like to tell us about? Anything new you've discovered? A new hobby, for example? Or
I'd absolutely love to tell you now that I'm fluent in another language.
Okay, good.
Or that I have, love to tell you that, or that I have managed to read through War and Peace and various other tomes. But I've probably not picked up a hobby. I have refreshed a hobby in my running. So I've really enjoyed doing that. And I've been out every day for the sort of the exercise. Running's been a really good one once every 3 days. So 2 days out of 3, I take Lucy for a long walk to give my wife a break after I finish work. And then 1 day out of 3, I go for a nice run. And it's been actually quite nice to be able to go for longer distances. I still feel like I'm wobbling quite a lot when I run. So you can see my stomach sort of bounce quite a lot still. But I think that bounce is slightly less pronounced than it was right at the start of lockdown. Could be wrong, but that's what I feel anyway. And the triple chin has turned into a double chin. So that's been kind of positive of it. But what I kind of love about running and going out for a walk and stuff is that you can kind of forget where you are and what's going on around you for just a tiny bit of time, even if it's only an hour.
That's great, and I did a bit of running last year, haven't done any recently, but there is that sense, isn't there, of being able just to enjoy the environment and the air as you run along, and that sense of I like what you're saying about you could be anywhere, and especially during this kind of weather, it's a lovely feeling, and I'm sure it's doing you the world of good. I need to get back to it myself. In terms of the impact, obviously, you're talking a little bit about the physicality of lockdown, and getting out to run and to walk with your family, and so on. What about the impact it's having on you mentally?
Um, I knew you would ask this question, and I thought, do you know what? I'll be a bit honest. And Alan now looks worried. Goodness me. Um, I'm just being worried. I'll be a bit honest and say that mentally, I've felt over the last couple of weeks a bit of a strain. I think when you see those sort of numbers of deaths and stuff, it's really quite detached in a way. Like it's a number, but it sometimes comes home, and you sometimes realise that this is people's family and loved ones, and that they're really struggling and suffering. And I think for me personally, the biggest strain mentally is the feeling of helplessness. That although we know we're supposed to stay home and not go out and all the rest of it, that causes a feeling as if like you're doing nothing of any use. And you can kind of see that in sort of just my personal opinion, in this sort of Thursday clap thing that goes on. I think people find it a bit cathartic because they're physically doing something. And I found it quite difficult to sort of see all these deaths and all this suffering and feel quite useless in it. And mentally, I found that quite a drain. And you hear people, your friends and your family and your loved ones, you hear about how they're struggling, and you want to go up and you want to visit them and hug them and let them know it's okay. But you have to do that in a distant way now, which I found really difficult as well. So yeah, that's everyone will be exactly the same, and some people will be in a lot worse position. I'm very lucky in so many things, but I find that quite difficult, not being able to do anything like practically really, or not many things practically that you can do to help others and to do something about what's going on, because it's an invisible virus that we're facing, not something that we can easily battle against.
Yeah. No, it's very true, isn't it? The tragedy that's unfolding in our own country as well as across the world, and it's still becoming an even greater tragedy in some parts of the world, and as we move through this period of time, and we do see the community responding. You've referred to the Thursday night clap for the NHS, and we see our neighbours and the communities responding in this way. Quite unprecedented, I think, certainly in maybe our lifetime, to have seen something like this happen. And it does take its toll. Certainly the workplace is going to be quite different when we do get back to it. I know I was in my workplace a couple of weeks ago just for a quick visit, and the protocols that we now have to follow to ensure there's a safe distance from everybody, and so it will have a great impact on how we do things. However, this is part of the ingenuity of us as human beings, isn't it? That we find ways of dealing with some of these things. Some of them are more effective than others, of course. But I think it is interesting to stop and to think, how is this affecting me? What difference is it making to the way I think, and to my mental health as well as my physical health? And then there's that other dimension, isn't there, of our faith and our spiritual life and whatever that means to us. How all of this impacts on us. And I know, we're part of a faith community, as you've alluded to, in Langside, and we're trying to be church in a different kind of way. What kinds of things have you been maybe learning about your own faith and your own view of the world through that lens at this time?
I think I always lean really heavily into my faith when I'm struggling, and I have done again through this. I don't think God is absent during these times at all. I think He's really present and He's really here with us. And I think He's absolutely here with all the folks who are really struggling in all different ways. I think it's kind of made me question what is church a bit, and what actually should we keep and what should we get rid of and what should we actually bring in moving forward. When we do get back into a physical building, we can't just go back to the way things were. There are maybe some questions, some real good questions to ask about what do we actually do each week, and how do we interact with each other, and how do we stay in contact with each other. And I think there's a lot of lessons for us to learn in that. And maybe the building isn't everything at all, even though I miss it greatly when I see those doors as I walk past. Maybe it's not about a building in the slightest. Maybe it's about way more than that. I think my faith is all a sounding board for anger often, and I'll angrily talk to God because I think God can absolutely take it, and I think God absolutely understands emotions and feelings, and I think we're, as human beings, and I'm really flawed like the rest of us. I'm super flawed, and I think when you see the stuff over the last few days that we've seen in the news about Dominic Cummings and his 260-mile round trips and visits to a castle, it's quite hard to turn the other cheek to that kind of stuff, to the folks in power, and not be a bit angry about what's going on. I think it's really difficult to look at the chaos of some of the approach, particularly in the Westminster government, that's been going on, and not get a bit angry and upset about it. But those are times to turn to God with those angers and make sure that anger doesn't turn into malice and cruelty, which sometimes it does with me, if I'm honest. And that's when I turn to God to try and get a bit of perspective on those kind of things.
It is difficult, isn't it? We look at what's happening in our governments, and we think, with this whole situation possibly could have been handled much better, and it is hard not to get angry and have those feelings. And what do you do with those? Interesting, in terms of relating those to your faith as well, and how you handle that. Excuse me. In terms of, I know you've got a real passion for those who are less well off in society, and particularly those who are homeless in our streets in this city. And you've volunteered quite a lot with the lodging house mission here. What can you tell us about what's happening to our friends who are struggling at the moment, and what can we learn from this that might impact on how we relate to these issues in the future?
It's a really good question. So around the start of this crisis, I was volunteering. It's the Glasgow City Mission. They run it in Lodging House Mission. I was volunteering at our night shelter. And it's a really humbling and eye-opening experience to deal with the guys and girls who come through the door, and I have a real love and sense of solidarity for the guys and girls who use our night shelter. Our night shelter was 40 mattresses on the floor, and there's no way to socially distance. And we actually had an outbreak of coronavirus, as was reported in the news, and a few people I know actually got coronavirus from that very outbreak, which was all very scary at the time. I think one of the big things that has happened is that a lot of the guys who are really vulnerable have been put up in hotels. And the hotels are very empty at the moment, which kind of allows that in a way to happen. But some of the volunteering organisations that I've followed, that I've been in touch with, have basically said there is no rough sleeping at the moment in Glasgow. Or if there is, it's so minimal it can't be seen, or it has not been found. There's maybe a little bit of rough sleeping here and there, but nearly everybody is in some kind of accommodation. That accommodation is totally for people with complex mental health and addiction needs, but it's accommodation. And it kind of goes to prove what a lot of people kind of suspected, that it was entirely possible to do something. It just required huge will and huge effort to do it. One of the worries that I've got going out of this, and one of the things that I'd like to see change dramatically, is as much as I loved going there and I love volunteering there, I never want to go into a night shelter again. The last night that I walked out the door, I was about 2 nights before the shelter closed, and it was a bit of a crazy night, but never mind. And I want that to be my last night. I don't think it's necessary for it to ever have to be there again. I don't think it's necessary for folks with complex needs to sleep on mattresses on the ground. We've proven that it can be done. So when this all ends, I think there's a real question of we can do it, why are we not doing it? A lot of the guys are really, really struggling. I'm in touch with 1 or 2 folks that I knew in some capacity, and they are really, really struggling. Addiction issues in particular. I'm no expert on any of this stuff. Also complicated. I really am no expert, but addiction issues in my mind, when you've got someone who is put in a hotel room or put into a tiny flat and stuck there with no contact for a number of weeks, it is going to be really, really difficult to try and battle against relapsing. And so I think there's a lot of struggles going on, but there's a lot of good that's been done. What we need to do as we sort of start to think about coming out of this as a society is to say, we found out that this could be fixed. We found out that this could be something that we could do something about. There's way more to do, but we've got a starting place. Let's not roll back at all. Let's not have anyone out rough sleeping again. We don't need to have it happen. We've proven that. And it may cost an arm and a leg, but it's a cost that's well worth paying, I think.
Okay, so I'm assuming when you talk about us, are you talking about our society in general? Are you talking about our local government? And if so, what can the rest of us do to influence those kinds of decisions?
The best thing to do is to official guidance. No, I'm not. I was going to joke there and say go and chain yourself to your MP's house or something. But then I decided there's lots of clever technology that can cut and paste videos. I better not say that in case I get arrested for being some kind of rabble rouser or something. I think there's loads that we can do, and I think the church is actually really good at doing that kind of stuff. I think it's got a real passion for it, but I think a lot of it relies on us really putting a lot of pressure onto local government and national government to say that this has been a huge step forward. We don't actually need to go backwards. And we can find the money for it, I'm sure. We really can. there's things that we can all cut back on, myself included. Rubbish that you spend that you don't have to. We could change it. And so, yeah, for us and what we can do, I think putting pressure on politicians and making sure that you are writing and emailing is a really good start. And when things start at a stage where we can actually go out and about again, maybe it's about making sure that we're volunteering with places to try and drop in on people and make sure they're doing okay after all this craziness is over and we're back to a new normal. A phrase I hate, by the way. I absolutely hate that phrase. I don't know if anyone else hates it, but
Yeah, new normal.
That.
In terms of you yourself and your family, as you look ahead, taking the things you've learned from this experience, and let's face it's only been, just over 2.5 months roughly. What kinds of things would you like at this point to be able to do differently in the future as a result of what you've experienced?
One of the big things is to make sure that I do actually spend the more time with my family and know when I'm overstretching myself. I know that the world doesn't stop when you don't overstretch yourself. I think taking things a lot slower is something that I'll definitely take out of this for sure. I think another, and it's a strange one to take out of this, but I will try my very hardest coming out of this to try and look on people who have got, who have been in the sort of the category people who have vulnerabilities, and I hate that word vulnerable, but the folks that have been shielding and have been vulnerable and I've been caring about them, I want to try and remember how much respect I've got for them now, because there's loads of folks that, and I'm thinking of one person in particular who are just now, there's loads of folks who are in a position that they don't know when they're possibly going to get out, and even going out for a walk is something that's too much for them, because the risks are so high. So I want to really remember what that must be like for people, and I want to be better at reaching out to people who have got those kind of challenges and try and help more with them, because right now there'll be loads of people, and our Prime Minister, our First Minister did, but our Prime Minister didn't even mention anything about the folks in shielding when he did any of his announcements. It was all about going to garden centres and all that kind of stuff and going for dates places. I want to not forget about that, and that's really important to me.
Anything else you'd like to tell us about as we come to the end of our conversation, Graeme? Any further thoughts about this lockdown experience that you'd like to share?
I think the only thing really to that I kind of think about during this is that I think it's absolutely okay to not be great and well put together. I think we do kind of see a lot of stuff in social media and online and on news articles about people who have learned to play 6 musical instruments and lost 16 stone and have learned languages and all that kind of stuff. I think it's okay just to get by, and I think it's quite okay to struggle getting by. And we've all got different experiences of it, and that's actually absolutely okay. And there's no shame or harm in that at all. We've all done our bit, however large or small it is. I think we've all done our bit.
Absolutely, thank you, Graeme. And listen, I wish you well as you test the new jogging buggy. I hope you find it to be a great asset to your running, and a bit of support as well, which you might need as you run, and something to lean on. And that's something we'll no doubt hear more about in the future. But listen, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts today, and I trust that we'll see each other soon on the outside.
Excellent. Look forward to it very much.
Thanks, Graeme, and that's all from the Inside Story. Thank you.